He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. If you want to correspond, I read some beautiful emails over the weekend. I always enjoy that. Some of you very, very thoughtful. And I'm becoming a dear diary for some of you. I feel like I'm getting all of your updates in your life, how things are going with family members, relationships. Sometimes I reply. I definitely read all of them. Thank you for subscribing as well. All the places you tend to get your podcast helps me out in the algorithms. If you're curious, I spent Saturday working, so work day. Mostly it was a car day. I spent about 5 hours in the car. But I drove down to San Diego, and I gave a speech to a huge group at the Young America's Foundation, which is a wonderful group of conservatives. And that is, you can find that somewhere online. Maybe we'll try to post it at Breitbart, but you can definitely find it on YouTube and elsewhere. And I spoke for 45 minutes about what I think is the real history of MAGA, with some advice for young people at the end, but mostly kind of, I think, trying to help people understand who might be new around here what we're all about. And it was a blast. And they all warmed up to me a lot. They started to laugh at my jokes by the end, but it was a great day. We're going to do something interesting because I just got done interviewing Senator Mike Lee a moment ago, and I'm going to throw it right to that. And then we'll come back and I'll do my news roundup right after. But in case you're tuning into the broadcast specifically to check out what Mike Lee's up to, then I'm not going to keep you waiting. I'm polite in that way. We're polite at the Alex Marlow Show, the whole team. So here we go. Here he is, the Utah Senator Mike Lee. All right, we're in for a treat today. We've got Senator Mike Lee from Utah, one of everyone's most beloved senators, but also one of the smartest guys, particularly on legal issues, perhaps a future Supreme Court pick, who knows, but certainly someone who is not only very informative and productive, but wildly entertaining on Twitter, which is sort of a new thing. Senator, thanks for joining me in the Alex Marlow Show.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be with you.
It's really nice to be with you. I want to start with just the general vibe in Washington because it's different now. It didn't feel like the first time Trump was elected, it was this much fun, and it didn't feel like that we necessarily knew what we were going to do and how to do it. Things seem totally different now, but I'm removed. I was there at the time in 2016, 2017. I'm not there now, so I'm only taking this in from afar. Is this real, what we're seeing?
Yes, it's real, and it's real in part because we've seen the United States government push things so far to the breaking point, accumulating over $36 trillion in debt, telling the American people that they've got to work, in many cases, months out of every year just to pay their federal taxes, only to be told later that it's not nearly enough because we've spent even more than what we've taken in. And then on top of that, they have to work months out of every year without even realizing this part of the price tag, just to pay for the excessive increases in the cost of everything brought about not only by what the U.S. government spends, but by regulatory requirements that are slapped on the American economy, costing the economy several trillions of dollars a year in new laws that are put in place not by elected lawmakers, but by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. So the misery index has increased to the point where the American people have demanded a change. Meanwhile, you've got Donald Trump, who came in, did a great job in his first term, but he's been run through the ringer since then. He's seen what weaponized government can do to them, and he's not going to take it anymore. And so, anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying you're right to sense that something new is in the air, and that this time it's going to be different.
Yeah, it feels like it already. Give me your take on the remaining cabinet appointments, because I got pretty nervous with the Hegseth appointment when that came down to a tie-breaking vote. Though I have to say, I did predict it would go down exactly as it did. I correctly predicted all 101 votes on a personal level, but it's still nerve-wracking because I think this is the most terrific cabinet I've ever seen put forth, specifically because they're outside-the-box thinkers. Most of these nominees, not people you agree with on everything, but people who I think have the best intentions and are disruptors in an area of our government that absolutely needs disruption. But again, that makes them picks that you're not going to get establishment people on board very easily with some of these types of picks.
No, that's exactly right. And that's why they're drawing some opposition, is that they're not establishment type people, and they're not establishment type people because that's what Trump wants, is people who will fight against the establishment. And this week, we hope to be able to move through a few more of Trump's cabinet nominees, including RFK Jr. to run HHS, including Tulsi Gabbard to be the Director of National Intelligence. And I think these votes are going to continue to be close, particularly those that are somewhat controversial. We're glad to have gotten Russ Vought in as OMB director last week. Later this week, we're also going to be moving Kash Patel out of the Judiciary Committee. We hope to be able to get him confirmed finally sometime by the middle of next week. We're going to keep pushing hard until these people are confirmed. The Democrats are pushing back a little bit, but at the end of the day, we'll win.
You know, I'm personally pretty obsessed with the lawfare apparatus. The superstructure has been created throughout the country. And I think people kind of loosely understand how bad the DOJ has been. And I think people understand how bad some of these left-wing courts at a state and local level have been. But the FBI is a part of this as well. And I think there was some meat put on the bone last week when we learned they had 5,000 people working on the J6 cases. But could you help us understand just how the FBI is culpable in this lawfare culture that's sort of guided left-wing politics in recent years?
Yeah, so look, it's a big deal whenever you've got the FBI involved in an effort that was underway in the previous administration to try to take down the incumbent president's last standing political opponent. They tried really hard to imprison Donald Trump. Now, this is the sort of thing that doesn't happen in a free republic where the rule of law is widely respected. It's something that didn't happen ever in the past in American history, not on this scale, not to this degree, never. And we've got to make sure that it doesn't ever happen again. So there's an effort that's underway already in the administration that will continue, I'm certain, after Kash Patel has been confirmed by the Senate, to figure out who within the FBI was involved in the periphery, or who within the FBI was simply following orders and doing what they were told, and who, on the other hand, may have been a driving force behind all of that. And I suspect that there will be some personnel changes there that come about as a result of that inquiry.
All right. So the next thing I want to get into is something that you put forward, which is really sort of one of these outside the box disruptive ideas. It's called the REINS Act, which is where you willingly vote to raise the debt ceiling, but there are conditions. There are specific conditions. And I want you to walk through the audience what this is, what is the REINS Act, and how you could feel like this could really unlock sort of debt ceiling increases for the future.
Look, one of the most consequential reforms we could make is to pass the REINS Act. I've often said if a genie appeared to me and said you can pass any piece of legislation now pending before Congress, it'd be the REINS Act. 100 times out of 100, 1,000 times out of 1,000. The REINS Act would require, in essence, congressional approval of major federal regulations known as major rules before agencies could implement them, before they could be implemented as law. We get about 100,000 pages of legal text a year run through what's called the Federal Register. Much of that becomes enforceable as federal law. Problem is that under the Constitution, Article 1, Section 7 says you cannot make a federal law unless you've first got both houses of Congress passing it, the same text, and then you submit that text to the president for signature, veto, or acquiescence. We've departed from that over the last 8 or 9 decades, and as a result, we have hundreds of thousands of pages of law that have been put in place over the years by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. So the REINS Act would fix that, and it would fix it first and foremost by saying that Congress has to pass it. You can't just make a law without following the constitutional rule. And that's one of the reasons why I've been willing to say that as much as I don't like raising the debt ceiling, there are enough people in this town who regard it as a sacrament, as something that can't be touched ever. If they're serious about the fact that they really, really have to increase it and that there's no way around it, then let's say, okay, fine, I'll go along with that as long as you attach the REINS Act. It's not too much to ask. And in fact, it's quite appropriate to do this because we'd increase economic growth by adopting the REINS Act. Why? Well, because at the end of the day, I think we'd have fewer laws made by unelected, unaccountable bureaucratic pinheads who are costing the American economy trillions of dollars a year, which disproportionately impacts America's poor and middle class. That's why I think it's a bargain worth making. And I think we need to push everyone within the sound of my voice who agrees to encourage Congress. If you are going to raise the debt ceiling, don't do it without passing the REINS Act.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is interesting, because you're really suggesting is not this next debt ceiling raise is not as important. It's really about sort of broader constitutional, what provides for the creation of making laws and what agencies are authorized to make regulations and administer those laws. And Congress could set up a new process that could really perhaps make things much more efficient longer term, but you got to get past this first debt ceiling to do that. Am I understanding it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if we did that, I think it would help us bring about the economic growth we need. We need to both cut spending, which has to happen, but cutting spending isn't enough. We've got to have spending cuts accompanied by economic growth. And this helps us round out that formula. But you're also right to point out this is a core constitutional issue. Remember, in Federalist 62, James Madison warned of some of what we now face when he said, it'll be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice, if the laws be so voluminous they can't be read, or so incoherent that they can't be understood, if they be repealed and revised before they're promulgated, or undergo such incessant changes that no man knows what the law is today and can guess what it will be tomorrow. So the circumstance that Madison warned of is present today in great abundance, but it's even worse than that, because it's not just that the laws are constantly changing, as they are by regulatory fiat, but it's they're not even written by men and women of our own choosing, and that's a big problem. We need to get this unaccountable, unrestrained federal government under control, and this is how we put it back under the control of the American people.
Do you feel like you've got good support on this? Because I just find it to be such an intriguing idea. It really could you could have it all if this gets through.
Yes, look, we're gaining support for it. I started talking about it publicly a little over a week ago.
Okay.
I posted on X on it, and a lot of people jumped on board. I've been talking to my Republican colleagues in the House, my Republican colleagues in the Senate, and our counterparts in the House. And so far, we're getting overwhelming support for it. I was pleased also that a few figures like Elon Musk have latched onto it. He's posted on it repeatedly, echoing what I've been saying. We've got to make this happen.
Okay, well, speaking of Musk, I'd be remiss if I didn't get your take on Doge overall. You're obviously supportive from your Twitter account, but it's a little tough sometimes from afar to understand exactly what they're doing and what is the most important work that you see that's being done. What do you think is sort of for the lay people out there? What are they doing, and why is it so important?
Look, the Doge, the work of Doge is absolutely essential to our ability to reclaim the government, to make it government of the people, for the people, and by the people. It has been kidnapped by the deep state. And Doge is coming in there, and for the first time in many, many decades, probably the first time in my lifetime, anything like this has happened. You've got some experts who have been tasked by the sitting president of the United States to weed out areas of waste, fraud, and abuse. Everybody campaigns on that sort of thing. Nobody actually does it once they're inside the executive branch of government. Elon Musk and his Doge team, Beck Ramaswamy and so many others who are working with them, are actually systematically going through this. Meanwhile, the deep state doesn't like it. The deep state doesn't want to be tamed. It's almost as if it's an organic living thing that wants to protect its own life. And in the meantime, they've had litigation brought. You've got this judge in New York, U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmeyer, who just forbade all political appointees, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, from accessing Department of Treasury data. The ruling's just 4 pages long. It appears to me to be all boilerplate and pretty generic language, zero substantive legal analysis. It was issued ex parte, meaning the Trump administration lawyers weren't given notice, weren't allowed to argue, weren't even in the room. Only these Democrat attorneys general were heard. The judge cites no law or logic to support this really aggressive order. And the ruling is, in essence, that Scott Bessent simply occupies a ceremonial
can't actually do anything
without any real power.
Right. Yeah. But this brings me to my really big question, which is, it feels like the left as a cultural movement, the Democrats are rudderless. They seem like they have no charismatic political leaders. This is their best chance to stop Trump and his agenda is through judicial activism, et cetera. And how do we, are you afraid of this? Do you feel like that there's other areas where we're vulnerable here? But as someone who's a politician, but also one of the top legal minds we've got, am I correct that this is the biggest threat right now?
Well, it is the most immediate pressing threat. I have a hard time calling it the biggest threat because I don't believe that the substance of the law is with the judge on this.
Good. Okay, good.
I believe that what Doge is doing is legal, and I don't think this stage of the delay is going to last, but I suspect this is the deep state's game. Yeah. This is what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to delay every time they get the chance, recognizing that in some areas the delay might be temporary and others it might be less temporary. But our job is to make sure that the delays themselves are as temporary and few and far between as possible so that the work of Doge can go on undeterred.
So I teased this at the beginning, but you're on a lot of short lists for a potential Supreme Court pick. If Trump gets more Supreme Court opportunities, which could be a positive thing, and I know our readers would be incredibly enthusiastic about that. And I've read a lot of your writing on some of the nature of the court. And Breitbart's senior legal contributor, Ken Klukowski, always says the Supreme Court is a Republican-appointed majority, but not necessarily a judicial conservative majority. And I want you to kind of explain that concept to the audience, if you agree, because I think that's a really important distinction, because sometimes we're often disappointed by the court. And I don't think that people fully understand this point.
Yeah, of course, people, once they're put onto the court or any court, they don't wear a partisan badge, and there's not a formal division there. And the ideological alignment within the court doesn't always reflect the ideology of the political party of the president who may have named any particular justice to the court. And there is also a difference between judicial conservative and a political conservative. The objects are different. They don't always align in exactly the same way. And so at the end of the day, what you have to look for when you're confirming someone who's been named to the court is what makes them think, how do they go about making these decisions? And one of the things that we have to watch out for, Republican presidents sometimes will mistakenly appoint someone who appears at the outset to be conservative, and they assume that their judicial conservatism runs deep simply because of a handful of statements that they've made. But unless they're willing to accept at the outset the necessarily limited nature of the role of the federal court system, and unless they've demonstrated a deep-rooted commitment to textualism and originalism, long words that really refer to a very simple concept, which is that the job of the jurist is supposed to be to interpret the law and the Constitution based on the words making up the law and the Constitution, and what they mean, what they meant at the time they became law or part of the Constitution, the original public understanding of those words. To the extent they get that, then you will see conservative jurisprudence coming from those judges or justices. If they don't, then they'll be all over the map, and eventually they will probably succumb to the blob and go along with those who are not judicial conservatives.
We're also the Energy and Natural Resources Committee chair, and the president talked about drilling. We don't hear enough about, I think, rare earth minerals and metals. I think that's a big topic. What can we expect from your committee and from the president's agenda coming up in this regard?
Well, first and foremost, our committee, the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, is going to be focused on making sure that we can start developing America's abundant energy resources again. A lot of those energy resources are found on federal land. In the previous administration, you have people in charge who wanted us to not be producing energy, wanted us to not be drilling for oil, wanted us to not be drilling for natural gas, wanted to put us on a path increasingly toward non-base load sources of power. toward things like wind and solar, which, while they have their place, they don't produce base load power. It's not how it works. And when you discourage and make very, very difficult the prospect of producing things like natural gas or power from natural gas or petroleum or otherwise, then you have an outcome that reflects a very different set of objectives. So we're going to be moving forward with an agenda that focuses heavily on putting federal resources to work for the American people to make sure that we've got access to more energy, more reliable, consistent, clean sources of energy that the American people can afford.
I think I've only got time for one more, so I want to ask you about, you've got a really creative tool that comes from James Madison that you want to use to weaken the drug cartels. This is so exciting. This is the type of stuff my audience loves. Could you explain this to us?
Yeah. Letters of marque and reprisal, marque there being spelled M-A-R-Q-U-E, are authorized to Congress as an authority under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10. This is a tool that allows Congress to designate a particular enemy or problem zone and to authorize what are called privateers, essentially pirates operating with the permission of the United States government through a letter of marque and reprisal issued by Congress. It allows them to go out and attack and undermine those entities, to retrieve spoils from those entities outside the United States, and to the extent they can make it back into the United States, they get to keep a cut of the value of the loot they recover. So when we're dealing with these amorphous entities like international drug cartels that are actively working to poison Americans, to undermine the rule of law in our country and sometimes in adjacent countries, this is a tool that we ought to consider. And I think it's a tool that we perhaps ought to use with respect to international drug cartels that have been flooding the United States with enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in America. In fact, as Ted Cruz pointed out in our Judiciary Committee hearing last week, just the amount of fentanyl seized by U.S. authorities during 1 month of last year, just 1 month's worth of this seized fentanyl would be enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's time for us to get serious about fighting these cartels, which are actively trying to kill us. And we can do that by, among other things, issuing letters of marque and reprisal so as to authorize American privateers to undermine them, to seize their assets and bring them back to the United States.
Amazing stuff. I love the outside the box thinking, and we're happy to help you be a megaphone for that here at Breitbart News and the Alex Marlow Show. He's Mike Lee, Senator from Utah, app-based Mike Lee on Twitter. Thanks for the generosity with your time today, Senator, and hopefully we can have you back soon.
Thanks so much. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Folks, this is the financial emergency. BRICS nations, China, Russia, and 8 allies are finalizing a payment system to destroy the U.S. dollar. They already control 36% of global GDP, and they're growing 5 times faster than America. U.S. sanctions on Russia kind of backfired, and now Putin's rushing BRICS to erase the dollar forever. 4 major economies already trade without the dollar. Elon Musk warns nations are fleeing the dollar, and billionaire Sam Zell admits cash could wipe you out. Once BRICS flips the switch, could happen any day, the dollar could plunge to pennies overnight. Your savings, your retirement, your buying power, all of it goes away. But you're not helpless. Physical gold and silver are the only assets that they can't inflate, freeze, or erase. You guys know I partner with Priority Gold. My friends over there have a free wealth defense guide that reveals a little-known IRS loophole to shield your wealth with precious metals before BRICS acts. Text FREEDOM to 24999 now for your free copy. That's FREEDOM to 24999 or visit PriorityGold.com. Time's running out. Don't risk it. Don't let the dollar collapse and have that steal your retirement. You can fight back today. So simple. Text FREEDOM to 24999 now. All right. What I love about Lee's style is that he is an outside the box thinker from a really intellectual perspective. So he's really fun on Twitter. It's funny. As a interview, he's much more, I would say, judicious and judicial. So no, but it's great. He'd be a great Supreme Court addition as well. But I love all these ideas. The REINS Act sounds terrific. So we're going to be riding with Mike Lee here at Breitbart News. So much good is coming out of Trump world. It's hard to even keep up. I was starting to jot stuff down that I felt like bringing up on the show, and it was just so much. He's banned funding of UNRWA, which is a United Nations agency that has a bunch of Hamas and jihadi operatives as a part of it. He's fired all federal media contracts or terminated all federal media contracts. So we're not going to be funding any fake news media as taxpayers. This is all stuff we talked about doing for the whole 4 years of his first administration, and we didn't do it for some reason. And then now he's just saying, well, yeah, we're doing it. It's just over. We're doing it. We're going on. And then he's imposing sanctions on the ICC, the International Criminal Court. This is that kangaroo court that lives mostly to prosecute people like Israel or countries like Israel, people like Netanyahu, and does a lot of the work of the bad guy globalists, unelected, and it just represents all the globalist nonsense. It was also where Jack Smith was hanging out when Joe Biden and Merrick Garland found him to lead the special counsel to look into Trump, which was unconstitutional, illegitimate. Recall, he was here in America, and then that wasn't good enough for him, wasn't big enough in scope, so he had to go to the ICC to prosecute alleged war criminals. And I don't know if he did anything relevant over there of note, but that's where they got him, and now he's back. So Pam Bondi got through. He has announced that we're going to stop producing new pennies. Another thing that's been debated since I remember I was in high school, I think, when we had the debate society I was a part of to debate on whether or not we should have new pennies. And the case was they're more expensive to make than they're worth. And Trump just said, we're not making new ones. I have no idea if this is a good idea. All I know is that it's a outside the box thinking, and that's what we need right now. We need that type of energy where we're not accepting things just because they're the way they are. We're not just going to accept them that way. So he's already cut 2.5% of the federal workforce. And those numbers are going to go up a lot, especially when Doge gets done doing what they're doing. And Doge is moving very quickly, which I just think is terrific. It's fantastic because the faster they move, the better things are going to be. So Doge got into some trouble last week because apparently one of their 25-year-old staffers had some racist posts online and then got fired. And then JD Vance came out and said, no, we can't do that. We can't fire him. Bring him back. And they did. They brought him back. And his name is, I've got some footage that will give you a sense of how this guy is known online.
This is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls online. So that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside Doge. And we looked into his background. And so we found several notable things, Aaron, one of which is that this individual has founded multiple companies, including one with another unfortunate name, Tesla.sexy LLC, which he established in 2021. He would have been around 16 years old. Now, this LLC controls dozens of web domains.
I honestly wish that they hadn't brought him back, then I could offer him a job. It would have been a good stunt. It's a sexy.tesla LLC. Very funny. He goes by Big Balls online. I think he's 25 now. There's confusion. Is he 19? Is he 25? I don't know. I didn't even look into what he posted. Maybe he's a racist. But I'm telling you, the point is that we cannot give an inch. This came up in my YAF speech. I talked about this quite a bit. A lesson of Andrew Breitbart, a lesson of Donald Trump, a lesson of Steve Bannon, like all of the pioneers of this movement we're in. They don't give an inch. You don't back down to stuff. You don't cave. You don't apologize. You can't. If it worked, then maybe you would do it. But if you've really got your eye on victory, the apologies never work. They just give the enemy encouragement. And I'm not for it. So I'm glad Big Balls is back. Welcome back, Mr. Balls. Mr. Balls, Senor Balls, perhaps. So that was good. So Doge is getting down to business and hiring all the kids who are going to clean up all the mess in the government using algorithms. Other thing Trump's doing is he's barred aid to South Africa and he's offered asylum to Afrikaner refugees. Now, the history of what's going on with race and in South Africa is very complicated. And Breitbart is at the cutting edge of this because we have a top South African reporter, once again, Joel Pollack, who's our expert on the California fires. He's our expert on Israel. he's also South African, so has a South African wife. Joel's wife's mother was a close ally of Nelson Mandela and was a famous activist, well known in South Africa at the time, a kind of a giant in the country, and became a huge Trump supporter, even though she was on the left naturally. So really interesting person named Rhoda Kadali. Joel wrote a whole book about her if you want more. But there was all of these reports for many years that were, of course, accurate, that white farmers, as part of this Afrikaner group, which is interesting because the Afrikaner language is mostly spoken by blacks. This is what I'm saying is very complicated. So the blacks speak Afrikaans, but the Afrikaners are whites. And but I guess this Afrikaans speaking white minority is the ones that were targeted, and for discrimination. They have been for a while. There's been a lot of violence against them, some murder even. And Trump has says, so long as this is happening, you don't get any more aid, because clearly the country hasn't cared enough to deal with it. And it's one of these things that sort of hung out in right-wing social media circles for a long time as an issue. But the lately, I guess now, the people put their foot down, and Trump is just saying no more aid unless this gets cleaned up, and good for him. So it's one of these things where it was very complicated, and there's a lot of murkiness to the story. So no one had dealt with it, but Trump is dealing with it now, and that's how he's thinking. He's thinking that, well, why don't we just do something? The same way that we're opening up Gaza Lago, or what are we calling it now? The MAGA Strip. We're doing this because whatever solutions have been proposed, no one is taking action. No one's getting stuff done. Daddy is home. We're going to do something different. So Trump had the coolest day, I think, of anyone in the history of the world on Sunday. He started the day playing golf with Tiger Woods, and then he flew to the Super Bowl. He had a Fox interview as well. I didn't grab clips of that. I don't know. I'm sure it was good. I don't know. I didn't even watch it. I gotta be honest. I didn't watch it. It was a busy day. I did a lot of family stuff in the morning, and then I watched Super Bowl in the evening while I cooked. So then keeping up with all the news. It was a busy day. And so Trump did that. He was at the Super Bowl. The most fun part of the whole day, and I'm just going to cut right to the chase, is this. Taylor Swift's on the screen. She's getting booed. Those are not happy sounds. She did that meme with the strange monkey guy online where he's looking side-eyed. She knows this is awkward. Her team's getting crushed. Her boyfriend, who dresses weird, had glitter. He's wearing a glitter outfit. Her strange boyfriend. All right, here we go. Now here's Donald Trump. He's out there. Cheers are building. It's imperfect audio. But you see the reaction of Trump. There he is. He's on the screen now. We're cheering him. So Trump gets a very warm welcome, and Taylor Swift gets a not as warm welcome, and that's fun. We love to see it. You know why? Is it people are, and I've got friends who don't get it. Taylor Swift's a Democrat operative. She rarely gets involved in politics. When she does, always on the Democrat side. She came out for this doofus named Phil Bredesen over Marsha Blackburn, one of our best senators. And Blackburn cleaned her clock, which is awesome in Tennessee. She came out for Kamala Harris most lukewarm way. Just what a half measure. And she's a political coward. And look, I don't care about her songs. If you cared about her songs, then that's fine. I get this. There are many artists in my life who I listen to who I do not share their politics, but I like their music enough that I listen to them. So, but if I get it, if you got a 14-year-old daughter and she listens to music and it's not offensive to you and you think it's sort of wholesome, that's fine. But for the rest of us who don't have that bias, then she's a Democrat operative who's ineffective, and we don't care about her. And the fact that she takes over the football broadcast, like it annoys us. So that's it. That's what's going on. They're cheering Trump and they're booing Taylor Swift. The game was terrible. I don't need to tell you guys that. I watched it. I did watch it. It was the Philadelphia was impressive, but Kansas City definitely made it look like my theory that is it even a theory or is this conclusive now? That the referees were cheating to rig the games for them. I mean, that looks pretty clear, right? Because they don't have to cheat in the Super Bowl. The goal was to get to the Super Bowl because then Swift's at the Super Bowl. So you got to have Swift in every round of the playoffs and then at the Super Bowl, and that optimizes the audience. So that was the move there. And do we have the NFL ad, the famous ad? Misty, I should ask this before we went on air. The famous one with the flag football. Do we have that one? I'm going to play that one. If you could grab that, the NFL flag football ad. But it's one of these things where they're trying to expand their audience because they've already got 100 million people who watch. So they went Taylor Swift there. So they were rigging the games, and then she got there, and then they didn't have to rig it anymore. And then Philadelphia just crushed the Chiefs, who, I don't know, didn't look very good to me. And then Trump, of course, gloated about the cheering for him and not Taylor Swift. The other reason to root for the Eagles was if you're a news person, then you know that once Philadelphia wins a national championship of any kind, if they win any sort of a sporting event, then they riot at the most intense level. They're the most riotous of the major American cities, which is good content for me. Now, it doesn't break my heart that much to see this happened because it happens all the time and they all vote for the same people over and over again. I guess they voted Republican this time as a state. That's nice for a president. I'm grateful for that. But it seemed like it was there's some property damage, but not as much as I would have anticipated. So maybe they're growing up. All right. Good for you, city of Philadelphia. But beautiful tributes to God from the players and coaches. Nick Sirianni, who's the coach, who seems like a cool guy, I guess. He was very emotional. He was immediately praised God, immediately thanked Jesus Christ. So that was awesome. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback of the Eagles, who had a really good game. He's a very good player, obviously. And he immediately said, God is good. He's greater than all the highs and lows. Beautiful sentiment. So it's back. I mean, we're back in so many ways. And Eagle fans chanting F Taylor Swift. That's too much. You have to go that far. You can not like her. But Super Bowl honored, 14 people killed in the New Orleans terrorist attack. Another good move. So I guess before I'll play some commercials so we check in on the culture war. See how we're doing here. Overall, the halftime show, the people on right-wing Twitter were acting outraged about it. It was fine. I mean, if you either like hip hop or you don't. If you don't like it, then the music was not going to be for you. I'm not a huge Kendrick Lamar fan. I think he's got one or two songs I like, but I stay up on all this stuff, partially for work and partially because I'm not that old yet. And he's not my favorite of the rappers, but he's wildly popular. His song, his most popular song this year, Not Like Us. I think I checked it on YouTube, 200 something million plays on YouTube. I haven't checked it on Spotify. I'm sure it's more. So, it's popular stuff. It's a certain type of music. It is not my type of music per se, but we used to see full-on Black Lives Matter demonstrations at these events. And this guy comes out and it's all red, white, and blue. He's the American flag. There's no politics in it at all. There's no political statements. And the thing that got the most attention is that one of his songs is this song, Not Like Us. It's a diss track, which means it's a negative track about Drake, another rapper. And he calls him a pedophile in the song. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but if your most controversial thing you're doing is calling a Canadian guy, Drake is Canadian, a pedophile, that pretty much sounds like my entire X feed on any given day is people I follow calling Canadians pedophiles. Like, it's basically the whole feed. So if that's the most controversial thing he's doing, we're kind of winning, right, in the culture war. So maybe you didn't like the music, maybe you liked it. I don't know. It's the do we have a taste of it? I think we got a taste of it. Let me see.
Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play the game? Then tighten up.
My left stroke just went viral.
Right stroke, put a baby in the. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble.
I got
royalty inside my DNA. Cocaine quarter, put the war in peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I'm tough. I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's.
All right, so there's Samuel L. Jackson's yelling at us. There's a lot of celebrities in this thing where every ad was Tom Brady or Matthew McConaughey or Matt Damon or someone who everyone recognizes. That was kind of the theme. And so Kendrick Lamar is a rapper. I don't understand any of that music. I mean, maybe it's good. I don't know. It's not my thing. It's not bad per se. I don't understand it. But it was American flag. There's nothing political in it. He's got these very long bell bottoms, and he's dancing on them, and he's not tripping. Like, I would fall over for sure. I mean, so I give him credit for that. That's got to take some practice. So it's fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Whatever. It's not. Think about what we've had in the past. I mean, they're all so. These shows have not been that good. The Usher show last year was not very good. Who's the Maroon 5 guy taking his shirt off? The show was horrible. I guess the Rihanna one a couple of years ago when she was pregnant, I guess that was okay. I think the best pop star right now is The Weeknd, and he did it, and I don't remember anything other than that he looked like he was on drugs. Like, I don't know. Like what is was that even virtual? Was that even a real one, or did we have like a virtual thing? I don't even, you don't even remember these things. They're not that good, typically. I think Creed did a good one, right? So I never even saw it. I just know that's what they say online. All right. So it's fine. It's fine. We're making progress. Okay. So I'll make some other quick observations about some of the other ads. I won't play them mostly because we're having a hard time technically on the show today, but yeah, you've seen some of them. The most popular ads is Jeep ad with Harrison Ford. I had not seen it. I was going to play for it. We're going to watch it together, but everyone likes this ad. I think Jeep's a cool company, but Harrison Ford drives Teslas, I think. So it's kind of funny. But another guy that everyone knows, Harrison Ford. So I think he's the most popular film star of all time in terms of box office, because he's got the Indiana Jones stuff and the Star Wars stuff. He's been in the right place at the right time a lot. So, but I just find that funny. And I guess it's good to burn fossil fuels now, right? I mean, Jeeps are gas guzzlers. There was a Secret Service ad that was directed by Michael Bay, and I'll tell you, it's not a lot of woke stuff in there. It's just all men being men, the warrior aesthetic. So that's coming back. That's a positive. The most cringe-inducing ad, and I posted this to my X account, was an NFL ad where it's this really long, drawn-out thing where this BIPOC woman beats all these white guys at flag football. And the only message you're supposed to get out of this is that women of color are superior to white men in all ways, and white men are all douchebags, and that we should celebrate the greatness of black female athletes and not white male athletes. It's just very tone deaf in our moment where we've moved past woke. But I will say, I understand what the NFL is doing. They're just trying to expand their tent. And if they can expand it to more young women by leagues or something, then that makes sense. I think that's what they were trying to do. It's all fine. It's just all just pretty vanilla and not a big deal. And that's good, because then we can get back down and we can get back to business. There's a great ad for something called He Gets Us, which is a Christian group that's trying to get young people interested in Jesus. Very moving ad about Jesus Christ. That's out there. And then there's an ad with Seal. I don't even know what it was for, Mountain Dew, I think, where Seal, the singer, where he becomes a seal, like a literal seal. I would have loved to have been in that pitch meeting for the ad. That would have been cool to see how they would have dealt with that when the person came up with the idea. Wait for it. We get Seal to be a seal. Sounds good. It's good. You know, whatever. It's I guess it's funny. I don't know. I have no idea if that's funny. I got to be honest with you. But people like that one as well. But it's all very generic, vanilla. It's fine. Just diversion, distraction. A lot more Jesus talk, a lot more God talk, no woke talk at all, aside from the one NFL ad that I could see. That's positive. Shows we're making progress, because then we can get back to doing the real business of governance. And that involves, for example, pulling the security clearance of Joe Biden. Joe Biden ran a repulsive administration where he targeted Donald Trump with his lawfare and him empowering the DOJ to appoint special counsels, et cetera, that are looking into Trump's life and trying to bankrupt him, trying to jail him. And then Joe Biden can use his security clearance to get information to make money. He doesn't need it. Tony Blinken, same way. Tony Blinken is West Exec, which is his consultancy firm. Tony Blinken, when he's not in the government, he has his consultancy called West Exec, where he basically brokers government money into the hands of private corporations, and he takes a huge cut. So this is his job. He's absolutely taking advantage of the deep state more than any other person financially that I can think of, because that's his whole business, is crafting deep state grift so that you get the money from the U.S. government, you funnel it to places like Google and the defense industry, and then he gets a cut. And now he doesn't have a security clearance. He's a very bad guy, and Trump pulled his security clearance for good reason. He also pulled it for Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, who were involved in the lawfare against Trump. I don't know what they would use a security clearance for, but good. They don't deserve one. I didn't know they had one, but they shouldn't have one. They don't deserve one. And I'm glad Trump took it away. All right, I'm going to cut it off there. We're having technical difficulties, and this was supposed to be a multimedia show, and we are not able to do that today. We got the Senator Lee interview in the can. So that's going to be it. That's going to be today's show. I had some emails, but I have deleted that by accident during all of the pain that we've been going through trying to get the show done today. But that'll be it. We're going to do that as the show today, The Alex Marlow Show. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Send me an email, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.